result, but after 1 or 2 years, there's no funding, you have no choice but to close shop. It's a real heart pain when we have to close shop. So what we're going to do is now look at what are some of the tips of writing a winning proposal that's going to get you funding. What are the mistakes we need to avoid? So here with us today, we have two experts who will share from their perspective. They have been, just like you, applicants of various grants. They have been out there writing grants of the grants. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes not. So here now they're going to share from their own personal perspective. What was it that they did right, that they got the grant? What was it that they did, the mistake that they made, they didn't get the grant? So I would like to invite two speakers from our two panelists. Eliza, Sthapit, who's a strategic partnership coordinator from ICCO Corporation, so our panel, and Vijaya Babu, a program director for Shanti Education Initiative Nepal. Eliza is going to share first. Has an applicant, has someone who has written many grants. What was it that helped her secure the grant? And learning from her, what you can do to implement these tips in your own grant writing. Okay, so now I'll just like to pass over to Eliza.
Ladies and gentlemen, namaste. Semua sahaja. मेरो नाम Eliza Sthapit. म चाहिँ अहिले इको कोअपरेसन भन्ने एउटा दास संस्थामा South and Central Asia पोर्टफोलियोको लागि काम गर्छु. My primary role is partnership, fundraising, at the same time also looking at regional coordination. Right? So South and Central Asia मा म चाहिँ Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, or Pakistan को लागि काम गर्छु. So 5-6 countries. I'm here today. I don't have a title called Winning Proposals. I have a title called Putting Ideas to Work. Because as a person, what I believe is, we want to win, right? We want to deliver a good product. But at the end, what is it that makes it work? We want to win, we want to write good proposals. But rather than saying if the proposal is good or bad, because there are so many factors affecting it. It's not just your write-up, it's not just it's not just the elements you put in there, it's also the competition, it's also the theme that we're working on. So basically my presentation is about what are the maybe interesting elements that you could put in a proposal. Right? So I don't come in here as an expert, as Eliza said, but maybe one of you, a part of the civil society who's working. So I'm here to share with you what I've learned, and also to take back something from you on what you have. When we start an organization, we just don't start it just like that. We have our strategic planning, we talk about our objectives, we talk about our SWOT analysis, we talk about our mission statement, so what is going to be our future, action plan, everything. So basically on this, where are we going to work? What is going to be our growth strategy? How are we going to raise funds? Who is going to be our donor and all these things, right? But at the end of the day, as Salima mentioned, fundraising strategy becomes really important because you want to raise funds for your programs, you want to see that future vision you are able to do that on the ground, you're actually able to deliver to your beneficiaries, you're able to bring in new programs, on the benefit of society. So you're actually increasingly focusing on your fundraising strategy. So what I want to mention is before you begin to bid, before you begin to write proposals, a concrete fundraising strategy action plan is very important because you also want to make sure that your organization is not like one-time project. Usually, we want to have a series of programs, not just projects, which comes from 1 year and then it's full stop. But a program which is more like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of impact, and it goes on and on. To be innovative. I can see a crowd of like 50 people here, and I think in reality we all compete with each other one or the other way because there are so many factors that we are working on a similar line. Women empowerment, youth, let's say youth income generation, or women income generation, education, sustainable development, livelihood improvement, everything. So you have to be innovative, you have to be different. Different in the sense, not that you want to stand out, but different in the sense, why is it so special, that you are there? Why is it so different from the rest of the world? This is, I wouldn't say simple or complicated, but if you look at it, it's one fundraising strategy that I just tried to put it in one slide. If you look at this one, basically, you have your organization missions and priorities. Organizational vision, you have your goals. Then you have your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Then you have scenario analysis. Condition you'd like to raise funds, program. But then to do that, you have to have your track records. Experience. Supposedly you want to run you want to run an education program, but if you don't have experience, you can't do that, right? So you have to have your track records, your past experience. You have to really align it with what the donor wants. What is donor asking for? So prioritization. You want to look at what kind of objectives, program, partnership, how do you want to manage your knowledge? I think you're going to learn about it tomorrow. And then, what are the procedures? What are the action plan? How do you want to raise funds? Who are the donors you're going to approach, right? What about implementing your program, reviewing, adaptation? Just the way you have a program after 3 years, you valid but you want to make it more contextualized. What about networking with donors, with like-minded organizations, international partners, research institutes? And the communication costs. So are you sharing it enough within your own network or within communities who are of interest to you? Just if you're doing a scientific research, are you sharing it enough with scientific organizations? At the end of the day, you have to remember fundraising, report writing, writing proposal is very much a teamwork. Right? You can never expect one person to be an expert in writing proposal. I could write a very nice article on women empowerment, but I'm not a gender specialist maybe, or I'm not a food security specialist. So when you do all this, you have to remember there cannot be one person. So it's basically a very big teamwork you have to bring in. Right? So as a group काम गर्नु भयो भने एकजनाले एउटा expertise ल्याउँछ अर्कोले ल्याउँछ, it becomes really fruitful. When we come down to writing, I can tell you this. Kunai pani training, kunai pani research पढेर you cannot really start saying now I'll write good. Right? To be writing good, you have to really start practicing writing. So practicing your strategic approach, you have to really start doing it in action. Right? Spotting the right idea, for instance. What is that one thing that I'm really interested in? If my organization is working on women empowerment, I will stick to women empowerment. I'm not going to do 100 other things of the world just because there is funding. Right? Thinking out of the box. So you want to be different, you want to be innovative, you want to be artistic, you want to be creative, resourceful, but you have to think outside of the box. If you're reinventing the wheel again and again, it doesn't make it so interesting. Then, as I talked about, you have to have a strategy, a vision, a plan, and then you have a success. Right? When you translate your ideas into projects, you have to be able, as an individual, when you put yourself into, let's say you're not an organization but an individual, you have to be able to answer these questions basically. Who are you going to work for? Where are you going to work? Why are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? And what are you going to do this? If you're able to answer it and put it into the right form, then you know what exactly are you thinking about. I found this very interesting slide on the 5 C's to writing. This is IWCC when they create one. If you look at this, opening, body, or close. Proposal here, you have executive summary, and then you have your main body of the proposal, and then you have a summary in it. So if you look at it, opening your title should be able to capture the audience. So already the title is it should be able to tell your audience what you're going to do. When you come down to the body of your proposal, you have to be able to connect. Right? If let's say I am a private sector person, I work for a food supply company. Right? So you are going to give me a proposal on nutrition. Just to say, why would I even care? I care for profit, right? So why would I care for giving back to the society? So in a way, you have to connect with me in a humanly way that why does this matter to me? When you are trying to explain things in your body of the proposal, right, you have to clarify what is your purpose? Why do you want to do this? What is the solution? What is the benefit? And the benefit to your beneficiaries, to the overall society. You want to convey, I know the proposal about what you want to do, you want to recommend, persuade, educate, or inform. Not just one I say, we want to have funds. Giving funds means this benefit to the society. So we want to educate if he doesn't know. We want to persuade if he is not so persistent. And we want to recommend. We want to tell him, see, this is how you work in the benefit of the society. Last but not least, the ending summary where European Union goes proposal here, and they have a section called value addition. What is your value added bundle? So you want to confirm that propose solution are the ones that's needed for the society. So you want to reinforce, tell them that this is really important. If you look at the overall picture of the investor priorities, organizational goal, and beneficiaries, your application should be here, right? It should be a convergence between the beneficiary need, between what your organization does best, your track records, past experience, and what the priorities of the donors are like. So if you're somewhere here, it's not so interesting, not either there or not there, you have to be really here. So maybe 100% it's not always but then you have to really maneuver towards being there so that you actually meet the needs of the beneficiaries and also all the other criteria. When you think about steps to consider, right? You have different lot of formats for proposal writing. You may be also thinking maybe technical but there are different styles of doing it. Right? But before you do that, you have to really understand what is going to be your go-no-go decision. Is this your area of interest or not? And you have to really understand what this particular donor is trying to say. So does it meet my organizational goals? So you have to really sit down and conceptualize. Okay, it's about youth empowerment, for instance. So what do I want to do with youth empowerment? And मेरो actually objectives it should be changing. So do I comply with the call objectives? And not just because if there was a funding and you would like to apply, that wouldn't be a good idea because it's a lot of time to apply for a proposal, right? It's a lot of time to write a call. So you have to really sit down together with your team and develop a strategy. And so the strength, so weaknesses, so opportunities like also you can change into more like a win-win situation. But how would you think if you were this donor? What would you want? How would you make the best of your brainstormings? How would you just to like that you would have to have a lot of experts on board. So how do you want to collect these expertise? Do you want to hire somebody or within your own organization, do you want to see if somebody is good at writing this one? Do you want to have some editors? Things like this. So you have to really work on these things. You have to really align your priorities. Donor areas of interest. Is your organization ready to bid for this call? Because call on Iskansa and you have like 3 weeks of time to prepare for the write-up. So you can't start writing, right? So you have your normal life process should also go on. So in order to do that, you have to be really proactive and already screen on which are the areas that you want to work with. Right? Before you have to explore a lot of opportunities, but be very selective in bidding. So you can't apply for everything. You apply for the good ones that's really makes sense to your organizational mandate. And you also, let's say, ask yourself if you're convincing enough. If you look at the process, you have to really, let's say, have consultation with your partners. Just so you already know there's so many programs going on in Karnataka. So before that, you have to already talk with your beneficiaries. Last benefit target group. So why are they cost So what is it that you want to do? So program you also should be learning what is it that you want to do from the past. Clear outcomes or priorities. And need analysis is really important. And then you have to have a good work plan and budget for your programs. This is a very good, I really like this graph because when we design our project, we usually think about this graph. Okay? I don't know if you'd agree with me. Based on my experience from experience we always think about activities, project. The reality is, when you really plan your project, you have to think here. Right? You have to really think about the bigger change that you want to achieve. Begin with the end in your mind. So you have to really begin with this impact. So as you plan, you move down. So the bigger picture, and then you think about, okay, key change, and then you think about key activities going on. Is it a plan going, but then implement you implement it this way. So this is not in your control anymore. It could take 10 years, 15 years, or even let's say 5 years. This is definitely in your control. So you want to make sure that you can control this one. And this is definitely what you're doing. So this is really important to think through. And also, let's say when you're doing the proposal, when you're writing the proposal, you have to think about, of course, this is at the center, your community needs. Then you think about where are the national priorities. Do we align with the government plans and actions? Because there is a national sanitation plan, there agriculture development strategy, education policies. So what about the international standards, let's say like MDGs? What about baseline, secondary information, statistics, and so on? And you have to think, which are the gaps that you'd like to really address? And maybe somebody else is already doing it. Maybe organization B is already, why do you want to do it again? If you look at what they are missing and you put in that stuff here, maybe it's also easier for you to win a proposal. Yeah? Also, let's say, upscaling our pilots. Many of the times, what I have experienced is, if you had a good pilot, for instance, already you have done a youth empowerment program, for instance. You did it for 1 year, you tested the pilot, now you have all the success, you know what works, what doesn't work. Then it's much easier to develop a full proposal because you have already hands-on with your thing. Right? And then you have to think about what is it that makes you innovative. How can you synergize? Just most of the donors, they look at how you synergize with the private sector. How do you bring them on board? Just the mentally grant matra way. They also look at CSR khalko paisa. They also look at building bridges between aid and trade. So how do you do that? Am I running out of time? But whatever we do, right? Whatever good proposal we write, we still should always be cautious that we have to also put emphasis on networking and pitching. So if you want to sell your product, you have to believe that your product is good, right? So in order to believe that your product is good, you have to know what your product is. So it's always good to create your organizational pitch. Just look, if I came here as a donor from Bill Gates Foundation, for instance, and I ask you one line, what does your organization stand for? How many of you are prepared to answer that question? Raise hands. How many of you can give me one line to say what your organization does? Not all of us, right? I know that feeling because it happens. I mean, have you heard about elevator pitches? Yeah? So you meet a donor, meet an investor, meet a high business person in the elevator like for 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, and then you have to create engaging first impressions, right? So you just have 1 minute to actually tell about what your organization is doing. So it's really important. You have to know people give to people. You have to have really good stories to tell, good human stories, profiling, visibility, talking about your programs in a way which people understand. A lot of times we think it's really complicated things that way, but it's most of the time simple things are what really brings in good solutions. Okay? So also creating, when you're writing proposals, it's also good to have already good pool of thoughts, proactively come where that you have a lot of ideas. Yeah. And then you also work on reflecting your strategies on these ideas. Almost the last slide. Good proposals. If you look at good proposals, they're reader-focused, simple and correct use of language. They avoid jargons. They're well-organized, logical flow, clear solution. They have a good relation to targets and beneficiaries. Good presentation. They have graphs, illustrations, not volumes of words. Fully complies with the call. Value for money. You have the good balance between your technical proposal and cost proposal co-financing. You're not asking everything with a donor, right? You're also contributing. You have good partnership, and then you have a sustainability component. This is just, collective thinking and concept writing. I don't know if I meet your expectations, but I hope it was interesting for you to listen to. Thank you very much.